People in Clarence, New York are trying to cope with air disaster in their community as investigators piece together the puzzle of what caused the crash that killed 50 people last Thursday night. Early Show national correspondent Jeff Glor is in Amherst, New York with more. Good morning, Jeff.
Harry, good morning to you. The latest information we have shows that this plane was operating normally until its final 26 seconds when it began to pitch and roll wildly, at one point rolling 105 degrees. A big focus still seems to be on the ice, but that issue seemed to get even more complicated yesterday. At the crash site, a blue tarp surrounds a delicate, difficult process, the recovery of those who died. 50 people when Flight 3407 went down. Investigators now have new insight on how the plane seemed to fall from the air. Radar data shows the plane fell from 1,800 feet to 1,000 feet in only 5 seconds before the plane crashed flat on the roof of a house. Investigators also confirmed the plane was on autopilot at the time of the crash, against airline policy only if flying under severe ice conditions. Pilots did report significant ice buildup, their own term, but there's no indication that it met the official definition of severe ice.
I think pilots will say you need to pay particular attention when you're flying a turboprop in icing conditions.
On Sunday, about 300 neighbors came to a crisis information meeting where officials warned them, especially parents, to watch out for unusual signs of stress.
My kids are very upset. My daughter was very close friends with the girl whose house was hit. And my son, one of his friends that he grew up with, was on the plane coming home from college. So, yeah, it affects all of us.
Nearly everyone in this stunned community has a story, including the very first emergency workers on the scene.
There is no amount of training that can prepare you for what we saw.
One of the larger churches here in Western New York that's held several services already is holding a memorial later this morning. Harry?
Jeff Glor, thanks. We are joined now by Steve Chealander of the National Transportation Safety Board. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
We're doing pretty well. I have some real kind of specific questions I hope you can help me with this morning, because there's controversy raised yesterday about whether or not the pilot was acting properly in terms of the automatic pilot and when he was supposed to take over. In a situation like that, are there hard and fast rules?
There are not hard and fast rules. What has come up that you're referring to is a recommendation that the National Transportation Safety Board has made that in icing conditions, the pilots should consider disengaging the autopilot. And there's a lot of flight performance issues with that. In other words, you get a better feel for what the airplane's doing and the changes that it's going through because of the icing. And so we have recommended that. But when we make a recommendation, the FAA has to consider all aspects of it so that there are no unintended consequences.
So there's not a clear black and white case in terms of what happened Thursday night.
That's correct. And to characterize the pilots as having done something wrong is incorrect at this time. So we don't want to go there.
Because the most critical aspect of this during his descent is his airspeed, correct?
Well, I'd say that's one of the critical aspects. I wouldn't say it's the most critical.
But if he's got ice building up on his wings, then if he's going to start losing speed, I mean, it becomes a critical aspect between his speed and his that gray area between speed, normal descent, and stall.
Well, true, but you don't want to characterize it as though he was losing speed because he was building up ice. We mentioned yesterday in the briefing that he had the de-icing system on 11 minutes after takeoff from Newark, and he left it on the remainder of the flight. This is a very sophisticated de-icing system on the Q400, and he had it on properly, and it was working properly as far as we can determine.
All right.
And so all the procedures that he was supposed to do thus far we see were being done.
All right, sir. Thank you very, very much for your time and for your clarification this morning. Very helpful.
Thank you, Harry.
All right, thanks, Steve.